Hello everyone, welcome to the channel, and more importantly, welcome to Cascadia. Where do I even begin? When I first sat down to play this game, I expected something similar to Ace Combat 7 Skies Unknown, which I had played a short time beforehand. What I got, on the other hand, was an amazing story, which is told in a fashion I could not conceivably explain in a video twice the length of this one. That is exactly the way I like it. This being my first video, let me go ahead and lay down what I do here. Hello everyone, I'm James, your local blue suit, red helmet flight nerd guy. Like many on this platform, I will be pulling those willing to follow me into the plots and worlds of the games I love. In doing so, I wish to give you a good story. I will do this by playing through these games in an attempt to put myself into the shoes of the main character and sharing my experiences along the way. Don't worry, I won't be repeating that every video, but like I said, this being my first, I wanted to introduce myself. And if you find you enjoy the way I tell these stories, consider subscribing and possibly checking out my book, the link of which is in the description. I won't do a lengthy segment about said novel here, but look forward to hearing about it more in the future. So, Project Wingman. This game was developed some years ago by a grand total of 3 guys who wished to make an arcade flight game in lieu of the new games in said genre. Of course, there was Hawks 2, but I have never played it, and I have not heard good things. What these friends made was one of the most fun games I have ever played, not just in the arcade flight sim genre, but in gaming as a whole. Many would claim this story is a simple one, and on the surface, they are correct. I found, on the other hand, that it contains much more depth than you would expect from a story of its kind. For a game about blowing up shit in a fighter jet which canonically costs less than a Cybertruck, there is a remarkable amount of lore. It is no Halo or Mass Effect, but comparing the three would be unfair. Oh, and also, here is your one and only spoiler warning before we dive in. I suggest playing this game yourself beforehand and seeing how our interpretations of the story compare. I have been rambling for far too long, so without further ado, Cordium commence. Many, many years ago, the supervolcano underneath Yellowstone National Park went up in a cataclysmic explosion. This, coupled with the sudden and violent reveal of a previously unknown substance called cordium beneath the Earth's crust, caused a massive global catastrophic event which brought the modern era to near complete ruin. This event was known as the Calamity, and it took humanity centuries to recover from the disaster and following global winter. As they did, they discovered cordium. Cordium is essentially uranium, but rather than being radioactive, it is thermally active, I think. This gave the world a supply of geothermal energy which allowed them not only to survive, but to thrive. As new nations rose, they of course vied for power over one another, and a number of conflicts sparked off. Nations not located along the Ring of Fire were called the Periphery, as they were not as geologically active and lacked the vital resource cordium provided both economically and energetically. These nations saw a lot of piracy, as well as the rise of mercenaries who did war in the private sector for those nations whose militaries could not necessarily hold the full brunt of a conflict. This is where our story begins. As I entered this world, I learned a number of things very quickly. I was a mercenary pilot flying for the Sicario Mercenary Corps, a well-organized PMC group who had a well-balanced track record. My TAC name was assigned as Monarch, likely due to the interest in butterflies. My call sign? Hitman 1. Hitman 2 and 3 were my wingmen, diplomat and comic respectively. In all 2-seater planes, I took along a weapons system officer, a wonderful lass TAC named President, or Prez for short. Our first assignment was to head to the Jesta Island chain and hunt down the Burlock privateer group. The mercs turned pirates had captured a Pacific Federation cargo vessel which was carrying a potentially volatile cargo. One of your old smash-and-grab missions in which we will gain air superiority, take out local defenses, and drop in Sicario's Spec Ops unit Ronin to ascertain and either retrieve or, if retrieval is impossible, destroy the cargo. I selected my aircraft, an FE-4 Strike Phantom loaded with standard Sidewinders, Sparrows, and large-diameter bombs. Once that was done, Comic, Dip, Prez, and I took off toward the islands at interdiction speed. The ground threats were minimal, but halfway through our mission, backup arrived to try and take us down. Needless to say, a bunch of nameless mercs against Hitman team, poor bastards never stood a chance.
Monarch, give us a shot.
The backup taken care of, we returned to the island to find that Ronin had found the cargo. It was some sort of cordium containment chamber, but far too large to take home. Our contact informed us that everything we saw was confidential by Federation decree, and with no other options, I was ordered to scuttle the cargo once Ronan had pulled out. It had rather explosive results. That's probably fine.
Oh, shit. I felt that in my teeth. Oh, damn, Monarch.
Fighters arrived moments later, and after some short conversation and some movement into weapons envelope, just in case, we came to terms that they would not be getting paid anyway, given the state of those who had just hired them. Thus, Master Goose Squadron informed us that war was brewing in Cascadia on North America's west coast.
War in Cascadia? Interesting.
Kaiser, the leader of our corps, decided it would be profitable to head out and take a side in the civil war for the freedom of Cascadia. Or, in short, there was a war, and we needed money. A short time later, while on transit through the Yellowstone exclusion zone to make contact with our new clients, a Federation patrol found us, and Hitman team was on point to intercept. Foregoing taking Prez on this mission, as it seemed a simple intercept, I used some of my payout from the last mission and took a MiG-21 interceptor equipped with R-73s and R-27ERs into the air for the last leg of my journey. What resulted was a long dogfight with my wingman and I turning with a full squadron of enemy aircraft. Of course, they never accounted for mercenaries to be as skilled as Hitman, and paid the price for it. And good go. Let's go! Woo! I might rank up the difficulty in a little bit. Realizing what was happening, they sent in another quick response force backed up by an AWACS. When that failed, they sent in Blue Squadron. When that failed, they sent in an airship. You see, cordium can also be used for propulsion. Engines powered by this stuff can launch what are basically flying warships into the sky. Destroyer Espadon was one of these ships, escorted by a flight of Sukhoi 27 flankers and loaded for bear. She was going to put up one hell of a fight, but if she were going to make it to the transport aircraft of the rest of Sicario, it'd be a slaughter. Worse than that, I wouldn't get paid! So despite the risk, Hitman and I moved in. Oh, I'm dogfighting a flanker in a much older plane. This is not fun.
Good separation.
Alright, moving on. Alright, I'm gonna take out this battle cruiser. Ow. Once we had linked up with Stardust, the leader of the Cascadian forces, he led us to a temporary landing strip, and our time with the Cascadians formally began. He informed us of the reason Cascadia was fighting. Apparently, the Federation wanted to extort their natural resources to use in a violent and expansionist regime. And when the Cascadians resisted this extortion and attempted to gain independence peacefully, the Feds forced it upon them, turning the nation inside out. The Cascadians would not let that stand, and are now fighting to force the Federation to give them peace. They are fighting an uphill battle, and they know it. Thus, they hired us mercenaries. Within the hour, they had sent us out on our next big mission, Operation Carpet Dawn. We needed to take an airbase from the Feds so that we could establish a real airbase for Sicario, and the other hired mercs to operate out of as well, I guess. On the way in, we needed to take out the local naval garrison there, so I took out the old FE-4, loaded it with AMRAAMs and unguided bombs, collected Prez, and got ready for the op. As soon as we were in the AO, Hitman and I got to work taking out warships, PT boats, and the local fighter elements. Like before, with Prez as my Wizzo and my wingman at my side, we made quick work of the naval forces and made our way into Rosedower. As we and the other squadrons worked on the local defenses, Ronan dropped in actual tanks and began to take the base with boots on the ground. Just as victory seemed near, a Federation squadron hit the airwaves.
This is Crosstalk Squadron. Commencing intercept.
The QRF had arrived. The Crosstalk Squadron? They were just a little too late. First boss fight, let's go. One. Rosedower was ours. Hitman had been given the first pick of facilities for our efforts, and we were ready for the next mission. Operation Water Stable was business as usual. I took a Sukhoi 25U Frogfoot loaded up with Maverick air-to-ground missiles and R-73 Standard missiles. Prez accompanied me alongside my wingmen to the vineyards of Salvemini to give CAS to our local troops. The garrison was under heavy pressure, but with our planes above, they were able to hold their ground. The feds in the region, and even some of our own troops, voiced their disdain for mercenary forces coming to save the Cascadians. This rubbed me the wrong way a bit, given we were there to save their asses, so we showed them what us mercenaries can do. Oh, come on.
Any of our forces get a positive ident on that aircraft that broke our line? Affirmative. A crowd. Mercenaries. Hard copy. Issuing theater-wide alert. Mercenary forces are now in play by the rebels.
The Federation, finally aware the mercenaries were being employed, they upped their ante and doubled down on their advances. Then the moment came that everything began to change. Operation Red Coast was no strike mission. It was no offensive in which we were to tear through the enemy. No, the Cascadians were losing Presidio, and we had to cover the evacuation. I loaded up a MiG-31 Foxhound with a good air interception loadout, and Prez and I went up. Completely unable to enter the port section of the city as their naval vessels would tear us apart, Hitman and I did what we could to help our clients pull out their boys out of the AO. Inside the city below, partisans were telling their allies to say their last goodbyes as they exfiltrated to the countryside. Ground units were ordered to torch their vehicles, civilians were being routed to the underground, and SAR choppers were being called to exfil troops left and right. Above, we did what we could, and we tore through the Federation air forces, but for every plane that fell, a radio transmission would come across the airwaves of a unit who held the line so the retreat could continue. There was, however, one moment, one line I heard which told me the Federation's true colors. It sounded, to me anyway, that these bastards were going to begin opening up on civilians if they thought they might be partisans. Something about that struck a nerve. Here I was, being paid to defend these people, but at that moment I didn't really care for the money anymore. That was when the airships arrived. Downing them over the capital wasn't the most optimal choice, but it was necessary. You better believe, after all I heard, I was giving them hell.
We've done all we can, Sicario. RTB to Rose Tower.
This one didn't feel like a very good
It
one.
wasn't supposed to be like this.
Having done all we could, we RTB'd to Rosedower to regroup. We had taken a major loss. Presidio was the capital of Cascadia, and just like that, we had lost it on all fronts. We had to strike back, and thus, Operation Flash Hazard was born. In the Apodoc fracture, there existed a geothermal facility, one which the Federation had taken over and were sapping for resources. In a classic case of asset denial, Hitman and I were to rush in, strike the facility, destroy as much as we could, and get out before reinforcements arrived. This did not go as planned. I loaded up a Tomcat with a well-rounded loadout, not knowing what was to come, and we took off at interdiction speed into the fracture. A little at a time, we whittled down the base's defenses, striking along the way. The enemy sent everything they had at us, fighters, AA, and airships, but determined to turn this mission into a victory after the crushing defeat at Presidia, Hitman and I pushed on. We wanted to ensure that they knew we may have been hit hard, but we were not out. And then, just as the last refinery went up in flames, we saw new bogies on the radar, and Command sent an ominous message to my HUD.
Crimson Squadron's on station. Hey, Rex, is this them?
Federation Peacekeeping Squadron Crimson, one of the most talented units in the Federation Air Force. An 8-wing squadron of Sukhoi 37 Terminators and VX-23 Raptors. Engagement was not advised, but in this instance I decided to deny orders. I knew my evac route, but nonetheless turned to engage. After the defeat in Presidia, this was supposed to be a victory. This was supposed to be some semblance of hope that we had a chance. There was no way I was going to let these poster boys take that away.
Are you seeing what I'm seeing?
Turn after turn, and finally I got a hit off. They were not invincible. They could bleed. As their wingman exploded and fell into the Apodoc fracture in a glorious fireball, Crimson decided to pull out before I got lucky again. Despite nearly wrecking my airframe to take these boys on, I had shown them that they were not going to so easily make us run. Taking that momentum in stride, Hitman continued our mission. Operation Seafarer saw Comic and I aiding a ship our boys had hijacked known as the Eminent Domain. Little did we know how much that one vessel would carry us into the future. Operation Broken Chains saw Diplomat and I taking on a large number of logistics aircraft while avoiding shooting down civilians in the region. We learned here just how little the general public knew about the war, but that was all about to change. Then I embarked on a lone sortie with Prez to the Wesleydale mountain range to take down an air defense corridor so that we could take out a massive Federation comms hub. It was a relatively quiet mission, but listening to Prez in our AWACS galaxy helped to break the silence up. It was that night which taught the Federation to truly fear the crown of Monarch. Finally, Operation Blackout saw us in the desert holding CAS missions for our Ronin boys on the ground as they took out the Solana comms array, effectively yanking the rug out from under the enemy's feet as we ripped away their means of stable communication. Along the way, we had escalated this war greatly. As Federation troops began to escape across the Bering Strait into the Federation mainland, we began Operation Guillotine. This one is hard to explain, so I'll just play the briefing in its entirety.
All pilots listen up. I'm getting in my plane right now, so when this briefing is done, I expect to see all of you running.
All Allied air power not currently predisposed in other operations are to be scrambled immediately and make their way to the Bering Strait. In the days since the destruction of the Solana communication relay, the Federation has been disorganized and subject to our own electronic warfare countermeasures. It is because of this, our first conventional victories up and down the front lines are being reported, and the Federation is dealing with losses it hasn't had to deal with in decades. Recently, in order to improve individual unit combat effectiveness, the Federation has been discharging Cascadian manned units and replaced them with soldiers who aren't nationals. Subsequently, many of our once misguided countrymen have defected and are providing us with invaluable intel and manpower. Earlier today, one of our patrols caught a group of transports using the cover of an Arctic storm to get unorganized and underpowered Federation units out of Cascadia, probably to regroup and redeploy later. The patrol engaged, and the Federation sent more fighters to cover them. Seeing as these transports represent the bulk of Federation forces who have experience fighting us, we did not want them to regroup, so we sent more reinforcements. Squadron leaders and base commanders on both their side and ours have been escalating force deployment ever since combat began. High-profile squadrons and our forces in theirs are currently present. This snowball effect, however, has inadvertently created, by all accounts, what is turning out to be the most expansive aerial battle in the war thus far, and is steadily falling out of control. We cannot let the Federation have any more of their forces escape and regroup. even if it means the largest furball in history.
The largest furball in history. Now this is what I signed up for. Suddenly, a familiar voice hit the airwaves.
Crimson Squadron, ready the MLAs. We're putting an end to this party.
Again. Looks like the poster boys aren't quite done yet and have come back for more. Alright then, this time don't turn and run when I take down one of your wingmen.
That's enough. You've sustained too many losses. All elements within the AO, pull back. I repeat, pull back. Crystal Kingdom has issued a full retreat. Till we have them. Just keep sending reinforcements. Don't take this from me. That's an order, Crimson One. We have no more combat effective reinforcements. The transports were all shot down. We'll just be sending men to die. I won't repeat myself. No. All Federation elements, pull back. Use the clouds as cover.
That's right. You better get out of my radar range. Run!
After this crushing defeat for the Federation, we pushed in through Operation Midnight Light to destroy a research base.
Answer to all flights. Tracking. Right on target. The hell is this?
Any poor bastard who wants to come play, I'll entertain.
Project Wingman is away.
Apparently, all their test pilots are French and only know how to use guns. But for the first time, I saw railguns mounted on the small aircraft, and that was definitely an experience. Once that was done, we began Operation Free Agent to take out the Federation's primary airship task force while it was still in port.
So tell me, Sicario, how does one move up in your organization anyhow? As far as I remember, Sicario used to be beneath another bloke. Succession. The next, longest waiting, gets the position ahead of them. Or no, overworks them. Right, Galaxy? Guns the lead. Shut it before I shut off your IFF.
This mission was one big turkey shoot, but, you know, I kind of like turkey.
Every lord had their signature. A mercenary that they could command but flew the battlefield in their name. Your crown, it reminds me of
next mission was a reminder of what the Federation could do to Cascadia. The third phase of the offensive campaign saw us giving close air support to a group of forces pursuing retreating Fed forces.
This might be a war crime.
It was not a difficult mission, but watching Grimwood Forest burn and Feds shooting down firefighting planes, I decided that, yeah, I didn't care if it was a war crime. They were retreating, not surrendering. They wanted to burn that land. It would go down with it. Operation Anticipation was more of a PR move. By taking the city of Prospero from the Federation in one massive attack, we would be showing the international community that the Feds are incompetent in protecting the world's interests. By the time we arrived, Prospero had been heavily weakened by a siege. Our job was to secure air superiority, and in that case, Prez and I took our Tomcat to the skies. Prospero would fall. Of course, it was never going to be that simple. Throughout the mission, we picked up Federation transmissions giving strange orders. Apparently all VIPs had evacuated from the city. And that was when they said the words.
No internet command. Send it. Authenticate. Solutions 0816. Authenticate. Blaze. Read back. Blaze. May God have mercy. The hell is... Holy shit! Thermal signature rising.
What is it, Galaxy?
This is AWACS Galaxy to Alcon. I repeat, this is AWACS Galaxy to Alcon. Alcon. We have incoming ordnance. Cruise missile type. Thermal signatures are off the charts. Hunker in a place or get out of the area. All fighters, I'm sending IFF info. Intercept as many as you can.
How many?
Too many. Hey, pilot, get us out of the AO now. Intercept? What the hell does he expect us to do? What's so special about these things? We don't take these things out, we're all gonna be up to our necks in shit. I'll take your word for it, Galaxy. Engaging.
What? Why are we sticking around? Roderick, we need to go. Calm down. We can do this.
But before we move on, we need to understand what drove the Federation to this. And to do that, we need to go back. Back to the Bering Strait. There, across the sea, a reserve squadron was called into duty.
K9D, Brick. K9B, Rookie, reporting in. K9C, Cop. Well, if that's the pattern, K9A, your driver.
Cascadia was losing.
Well, the Federation certainly isn't winning if we're going out.
The radio said at home was...
What the hell did we miss?
Stay tuned, this series will continue. Don't you worry.